Hello, everyone. And today we are going to be talking with Dr. Kelly Garrett. He is the Director of the Emergency Management Professionals Program at the Emergency Management Institute. And today we're going to really dive into a little bit of the program that they offer at EMI, but more importantly, how that will drive the EM profession forward and the leadership aspects in which they are teaching in the Executive Academy. Good morning, Dr. Garrett, and welcome to the Theory into Practice podcast.
Good morning, Dan, and I'm glad to be able to join you today. Thanks for having me.
I truly appreciate you taking the time. You are one of my favorite guests. I've had you on other podcasts that I've hosted, and I am a true advocate of the EMPP, and I think that we can put the word out a little bit more, but also help drive the profession a little bit forward as the programs continue to evolve, but also as the profession continues to evolve, which the EMPP has a great deal to do with.
Well, thanks, Dan, and knowing that you've graduated from all three academies, we're glad to have people like you being an advocate for us, especially now since we are accepting applications for both the Advanced and Executive Academies for the upcoming fiscal year. And we'll be taking applications for those academies through June 1st of this year. So if anyone's listening and you're interested in applying, hopefully that will spur you to fill out an application this week.
Absolutely. So that just it is through June 1st of this year. That's 2.5 weeks left to get your application in. Where can they submit that application?
Anyone that's interested can go to training.fema.gov, and on the menu at the top, select the EMPP, and that will take everyone from there to our landing page, and they'll be able to find the link on the left-hand side of the menu for the application process, and the application's right there.
Awesome. If you're listening, go to that site, click on there if you're interested in I highly recommend it. As Dr. Garrett mentioned, I am a graduate of all three academies, the basic, the advanced, and the Executive Academy, and I'm looking to go through them again. They're amazing programs. They are continuing to improve upon, and the program itself is evolving. Each program is actually evolving. The Executive Academy is, in my opinion, one of the programs that is going to help build the leaders of the next generation of emergency management by building up the current generation of emergency managers. So I highly encourage you to go check it out, apply. If you don't get in, apply again. It's very highly competitive, and you don't be disappointed if you don't get in. Just apply again, and you will get in eventually. It's a great program. Not only do you learn great, you meet great people with the instructors that are there, but you also get to network with emergency managers and EM professionals throughout the industry, throughout the world, really, not just the United States. I know when I went through, we had people, guest speakers from various countries come in as well. So that was definitely a benefit. I know one of the benefits of the executive, which I know that you spoke pretty deeply on, so I won't touch on it too much, Dr. Garrett, was the change in the Executive Academy and the Gettysburg walkthrough with leadership. You did a very in-depth interview with Todd DeVoe. So if you're listening, go check out Todd DeVoe's show with the interview of Dr. Garrett. And they talked very deeply about the Executive Academy and the new adding of the Gettysburg walkthrough. They actually walked through the battlefield and talked through some of the leadership decisions that are made. Just real quickly, give us a brief on that so that the listeners can go hear more about it in Todd DeVoe's show.
Well, thanks, Dan. The second week of the Executive Academy has a theme called Leading in Complex Systems. And we actually examine the Battle of Gettysburg through an experience we're calling the disaster at Gettysburg. So we look at what happened in those 3 days in Gettysburg through the lens of a disaster, striking a community rather than a traditional view of looking at the historical aspect of a battle or the military leadership aspects. So we actually use the ESFs and the lifelines and look at how those were all impacted based on what happened to the community over those 3 days. We set it up with a tabletop exercise, and then we do spend a day on the battlefield just so the students get a sense of what it was like to be on the ground and see how this disaster that struck the community really impacted the different parts of the community over the course of the 3 days.
And I personally look forward to being able to come and experience that myself. I know we talked about that in the past when you started getting it going, and it was in its working phases. But I definitely would be interested in taking you up on that, and coming back and sharing it on this podcast as well. So let's transition real quick to the programs, and at the end, what is the idea behind the programs that are in place? The EMPP, the Emergency Management Professionals Program. What is the outcome you're hoping to get from those who attend?
Well, the three academies, Dan, the Basic Academy, the Advanced Academy, and the Executive Academy, are really designed for emergency managers interested in a continuous professional development cycle throughout their careers. So while they serve emergency managers wherever they are in their career, they are linked through the common competencies designed for the next generation of emergency management leaders. At the basic level, we tend to be more focused tactically because most of the folks that attend that program work at the state or local, tribal, or territorial jurisdictions. So they're the ones that are actively responding to disasters or managing a disaster on the ground. Although about 50% of the students that attend the Basic Academy have more than 5 years of experience. So it's a good blend of people that are relatively new to the profession and people that have been around for a while. So to your earlier point, the community that we build and the interaction that the students get with each other is really valuable, because we've learned over time that learning from each other is more powerful learning experience than anything we can necessarily give everybody. So we form as the common thread, looking at the competencies, especially from a leadership development standpoint, regardless of where someone is in their career. At the Advanced Academy, we focus more on leading people and leading in organizations. And then in the Executive Academy, we really focus on leading in high-level organizations or trying to influence policy and doctrine within a profession. And we take the common themes in leadership development, like systems thinking, critical thinking, strategic thinking, making decisions, effective communications, and all of those types of skills from one level to the next, so that each time a student attends one of the academies, are getting a different perspective. And my experience has been, the more we're exposed to and the more perspectives that we are able to receive on a topic, the better well-rounded we become.
Absolutely agree. One of the important aspects I'd like to kind of touch on real quick is that the importance of taking the courses and getting the knowledge and getting the connections and the networking is the partnerships that you guys have, the EMI has gone into with other organizations in order to get credit and be able to get certain certifications and degrees with these courses that are being taken. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can, Dan. As a federal government organization, it's not really our role to certify anyone. And even though the Emergency Management Institute is in a strategic process of looking at how we're structured and moving more toward a college and university model, we're not going to be a degree granting institution either, because there are a lot of requirements that are outside the scope of what our mission really is. But we are a learning and development organization. We provide training and professional development for emergency management professionals, regardless of whether they're directly involved as emergency managers or in the public health space or the event security space. So what we do is we provide a means to an end by attending our programs. For example, 4 years ago, we partnered with the International Association of Emergency Managers to do an educational crosswalk. So all of the academies are directly aligned with the Certified Emergency Management credential. So graduates of the academies can have those credit hours, those continuing learning units, applied directly to their initial certification or recertification for the CEM. We also receive evaluations from IACET, which is the accrediting agency for continuing education and training. And they recommend a certain number of hours for completing each of our programs. And we also work with the American Council on Education to get recommendations to earn college credit. So some of the courses within the Basic Academy will have undergraduate credit up to the upper division undergraduate level. Of the Advanced Academy and the Executive Academy, we're working toward getting graduate level credit recommendations as well. So again, our intent is to be a well-rounded organization that can meet the professional development desires of anyone in the emergency management career field.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that myself have found so valuable as well, even though I have attained some degrees in higher education, going through these programs and meeting the people and learning from the people and taking the independent study and being able to apply these towards college credit or whatever it may be, is that I'm learning from those who are doing it already in a much more compacted time frame. And there is a much more accelerated learning that takes place within these academies, because you're learning and being able to network and have with these students that are in the same class that have been doing it for a year to 5 years, and you're learning from their experiences as well. And it helps you not only gain more of an insight into the education, but then be able to apply them towards a degree or a certification of some sort, aids in the building of me as a professional, and then as the profession itself sees more credibility of the people that we're putting into the field.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. And last year at the IAEM annual conference, the theme was learning from the past to shape the future. And we really take that seriously with the academies in the EMPP program, because we will use case studies as a learning tool throughout all three of the academies. But it's just a frame of reference, and it helps us learn from the past and do some critical thinking and evaluation on what went right and what went wrong. But then again, we open up the conversation among the students within the classroom so they can share their experiences in a contemporary environment. So it's good to have that framework on the past, but then we also, again, share those experiences, because disaster and crisis management is not exactly the same as it was 10 or 15 years ago. And we want to be contemporary, and we want to be current in the educational approach that we take in the academies.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. I mean the way things were, I mean, just 5 years ago, really, at the rate of change that is taking place in the not only the how often we're getting struck with these events, their severity has increased, and the lack of training and sometimes preparedness that goes along with that, and the individuals to actually do the job correctly, is limiting us in how effectively we can respond to these incidents. And this is an area that we'll talk to after the break as well. But how is it that we can best prepare for these incidents using these trainings that you're providing people when we are experiencing them at a higher rate, a more extent, their effect on us is more extensive, and they're longer lasting in the recovery, and getting things back to the place they were in this. And then we'll talk about this. I don't want to touch on this too much with this segment, because we'll talk to it after the break. But the expanding responsibility of the emergency manager as well.
That's a common challenge, Dan, that the students discuss in class as well. One of the biggest frustrations that we hear from students, especially in the Executive Academy, because most of those folks in the academy are working at a higher level, but they may not necessarily be in a formal position of authority, is what can they do to better influence outcomes that can lead to being better prepared for disasters and to better manage disasters, especially when they occur. So we try to frame that conversation and understanding that one doesn't need to be in a formal position of leadership on an organizational chart somewhere to actually be an influential leader. It's a process of positively influencing others that can provide resources or can provide support to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish. So we really try to help everyone understand that it is a process. It's an ongoing process that starts during blue sky times and continues through when a disaster may occur. And it's really understanding who we are as emergency managers and what we can bring to the table. And influential leadership is really focused on three primary premises. One is expert leadership, and that possess the knowledge or the skills that are in demand, and that people respect us for the expertise that we can bring to a situation that others may not have. Referent leadership is really having the respect, and people want to identify with us as leaders because we are respected, and unfortunately in some instances There's a likability factor. I mean, people want to be around people that they like. So if they like the type of person that we are because of the way we handle ourselves or the way we conduct ourselves, they'll subconsciously view us as a leader. And that will give us additional influence to get those people to refer to our professional opinions. And then the final part is informational leadership, which is really possessing knowledge that others want or need given on a current situation, because they may not have access to that knowledge or they may not have the expertise to get that type of information. So if we all look at ourselves as leaders within the field on a daily basis, regardless of where we sit on an organizational structure, we can go through this process of influencing positive outcomes to help our communities and the elected and appointed officials that lead them be better prepared before a disaster strikes and to better work through the process of dealing with the disaster and recovering from the aftermath once a disaster has hit a community.
That's a great point, and I appreciate you actually touched on it. The aspect of influence versus, I did a talk recently at a conference in Nevada, where this was the very topic of what I talked about, was that everybody's a leader, and if you don't, but I'm sorry, not everybody is a leader. Everybody has the potential to be a leader, whether they want to be a leader or whether they have kind of had leadership thrust upon them. But ultimately, leadership is influence. Now, so the way you think about, the way you approach your day to day, the way you approach the people that you work with, the way you approach the people that help you drive your initiative, whatever that is all about influence and how you influence in any area that you may sit within an organization, whether that be in the middle, at the bottom, or even at the top. There are more and more, and this is something I want to touch on in our next segment, more and more positions that are being established at the top levels of organizations, at vice president level, C-suite levels positions that we need to be ready to fill. And we can be ready to fill them if we start applying these simple skills and concepts now while they are being established. And I really appreciate you hitting on that. That's a big point, and it's a big argument that I personally have in moving this profession forward, is being able to fill these positions when they come available, because they are being established, and we're seeing more and more of them, even though they are slow to come to the market.
Absolutely, and I don't want to give the impression that it's easy to be an influential leader, because it isn't. It's hard work, and it is a continuous process. One of the advantages of being in a formal leadership position is there's power and authority, direct power and authority that comes with those positions, and everyone understands that. So notionally, it might be easy to tell somebody what needs to be done or how to do something without being in a formal position of authority, but having responsibility for managing a crisis or handling a disaster. Really does involve the process of influential leadership. And that's where we need to understand that's not something that's going to happen overnight. We really need to work at that, and it is a lot of hard work.
Absolutely. Well, this is a great place that we can actually take it to transition into the next segment. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we will come back and we will be talking about leadership, application, and influence, not only the professional, but the profession itself. So we'll see you after this.